Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to Kharkiv, Ukraine. After my previous video, why I keep speaking Russian in Ukraine, I was genuinely surprised by how many comments and questions it received. So the video performed beyond my expectations. Apparently, this whole language topic is something people are interested in, and that's exactly why I decided to make a part 2 and answer the most common questions. You mostly asked about whether Russian is oppressed in Ukraine, how people feel about language restrictions, whether Russian books are banned, and why personally I always say Kharkiv when the Russian version is Kharkiv. And I made it absolutely clear that I am a Russian-speaking woman. So in this video, I'll try to give you a clearer and more complete picture of the language situation because it looks like a lot of things are misunderstood. The first restriction I want to talk about is the one about Russian books. Guys, things around Russian books have turned into a bit of a mess and into a bit of a farce. Actually, the official laws on books are way less absurd compared to the stuff that people have been doing with books. So we have some language activists and volunteers, and they really take the crown for absurdity. I'll definitely share with you the highlights because what they did with Russian books at times reminded me of Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. It definitely worth your attention. But as for official changes that came after 2022, President Zelensky signed a law and it basically says that you can't bring into Ukraine any books produced in Russia. So basically Ukraine completely banned any book imports from Russia. There are some exceptions in this law, and maybe we can still find Russian language books in Ukrainian bookstores, but these books have to be published here in Ukraine. I didn't dive super deep into all the details of this law, but I had a first-hand experience with a book called Happy English. Here is the book, guys. It's a very dangerous book, and I'm gonna share with you what has happened. Behind me is an office of Ukraine's private postal service called Nova Poshta. It's honestly the most reliable, the most modern private postal company in Ukraine, and the service is really good. I used it many times during the war, mainly to send some of my stuff abroad. Because, guys, during the first years of the war, I was mainly abroad in Poland. And at some point, I decided to ship some of my stuff from Kharkiv to Poland. And Happy English was in my package. When the employees of Nova Poshta inspected the package, they found the book, and the first question I was asked, is this a Russian book? I said, well, actually, it's in English. And they checked where it was printed. And guess what? The freaking Happy English was published in Russia in 1997. And I was told, we're terribly sorry, but you can't send this book to Poland. It felt a little bit strange. It wasn't a big deal for me personally, not the most important item I wanted to send. But the fact is that I was literally not allowed to send the book to Poland. I checked that it was designed for Russian school kids, and it's all about American culture. I also used this book when I was a schoolgirl. So, of course, guys, we will take a closer look what's inside. Maybe there is some crazy propaganda. Maybe Russian kids and Russian-speaking kids were taught that American culture is absolutely terrible and the book is full of Cold War narratives about evil America. Let's take a closer look at Happy English. The book states that it was designed for middle school students in general education schools. The authors and publishers are deeply grateful to the US Embassy in Moscow and especially to the US Information Service for their support in the research and organization of the materials used in this book. Happy English follows the adventure of a 13-year-old Russian boy Sasha, who immerses himself in American culture after flying from Moscow to New York and spending his time in American family for cultural exchange. The kids are introduced to different American holidays, which are quite different from what they are used to. Some holidays, like Thanksgiving, receive special attention with explanations of their history and the traditional foods Americans eat. The book also talks about great American leaders, writers. There is even a passage saying that Benjamin Franklin believed only in a democratic country like America could a poor boy have the possibility of becoming one of the most famous and powerful men in the world. So yes, a Russian published book talking positively about American democracy. And the cherry on top, kids are even taught to play and sing the American national anthem with the lyrics translated into Russian. I think that this postal service went with the safe option, like Russian publisher means potential risk and it's better to say no right away, so they automatically rejected all books published in Russia. Nobody is obviously analyzing or reading what's inside because it's technically impossible, but if we check the official website of the company, there is nothing that says Russian language books are banned from being sent. But in reality, we faced this issue. One more thing about Russian books that wasn't common before the war is that through Ukrainian media, people are often encouraged to get rid of Russian books. So I'm going to show you guys how it often looks like in Ukrainian media.
Російську літературу на туалетний папір. У Ковелі книги, надруковані мовою країни-агресорки, переробляють на більш цінні предмети щоденного вжитку. Таку ініціативу започаткували місцеві волонтери. Як усе відбувається, бачили наші кореспонденти.
Ukrainian Channel 5 showed how books written in the aggressor's language Russian were being turned into toilet paper in western Ukraine with the help of volunteers from the city of Kovel. The toilet paper was then sent to soldiers on the front line. Today we collected more than 50 books. I don't feel sorry for them. Why should we keep something that is killing us? This needs to be rooted out, starting with ourselves and then from the country as a whole. The less Russian we have inside us, the less of it there will be around us. The head of the volunteer center says that people are happy to bring in Russian language books because turning them into toilet paper feels morally satisfying to them.
Сир є якісний, екологічно чистий, виготовляється тільки з макулатури.
So friends, answering the question of whether Russian books are banned in Ukraine, no, of course they are not. It's not a dystopia yet. It's a beautiful garden of democracy and you can still read Russian language books, even keep them at home. At the same time, you might not be allowed to send a book because it was published in Russia. And here in Kharkiv, all monuments to Russian writers have been torn down. The state propaganda around this topic is pretty annoying, but Other than that, everything is fine with books. And moving beyond books, guys, let's talk about restrictions on the use of the Russian language in general, or what some people call oppression. Book restrictions is just one part of a broader policy to reduce the presence of the Russian language in public life. And after the war started in 2022, Ukraine has passed new laws affecting Russian. According to these new laws, Ukrainian is mandatory in media, in education and services. For me personally, the most noticeable change is in services. Now, if you go to a supermarket, for example, you will be served in Ukrainian by default. Or if you ride a train, a carriage attendant will speak to you in Ukrainian. On trains, you will even see advertisements saying that we appreciate if you speak Ukrainian. And they also have warning that you can't play the Russian pop music on trains. That's also a little bit strange, doesn't sound like a beautiful garden of democracy, but nevertheless, these restrictions in businesses mostly noticeable in big businesses. So if it's a big chain of supermarkets or maybe chain of clinics, then you are served in Ukrainian. But when it comes to just some, local neighborhood places, or like we have a lot of open air markets, some kiosks, then people continue providing services in Russian. But in big businesses, yes, it's mostly in Ukrainian. And you also asked friends about our feelings, how we feel about these restrictions. So I can tell that different people feel differently. And I showed you a TV report where people in the city of Kovel in western Ukraine brought classical literature and turned it into toilet paper. And they were absolutely happy about it. Personally, for me, turning Russian classical literature into toilet paper is a sign of cultural degradation. But I would like to think that this is just how propaganda works. So they create this illusion that it is something common. But I would like to think that they simply found some crazy group of weirdos and showed them to us. So we would think that everybody is super hostile toward Russian books in Ukraine. But I would like to think that there are enough people with common sense in both in Western Ukraine, which traditionally speaks Ukrainian, and here in Eastern Ukraine in particular. Of course, the percentage of people who are Russophobic or hostile toward all things Russian in Western Ukraine is higher than here. But I can tell you that I personally traveled to the city of Lviv, and this is the city in Western Ukraine with crazy amount of Ukrainian nationalists. But I survived. I wasn't beaten, nobody attacked me, and people were actually pretty nice. Those ones that I met. But here and there we often hear that there are some language scandals, like people can attack you on a train if you speak Russian, for example. And they say like, oh, you live in Ukraine, why are you using this terrible language? But again, I think that, there are enough idiots in every single country and nation. I would like to think that the vast majority of people here has common sense, and they are not very happy about turning books into toilet paper or some crazy restrictions about the Russian music, for example. You can be fined if you listen to the Russian pop music in public. That's very strange. The government use languages as a political tool, and it creates confrontation between Western Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine. There is nothing good about it. And also it's a well-known fact, the Russian political system use the language as a political tool. So languages became very, very political, and nobody is happy about it. Why I always say Kharkiv when the Russian version of the name of the city is Kharkiv? This YouTube channel was created for foreigners, and the only reason I say Kharkiv to make the name of the city recognizable for foreigners, because these Slavic names are very confusing for foreigners, and if I mispronounce that one letter and saying Kharkiv, that would confuse them even more. But we locals in Kharkiv, yes, we call this city Kharkiv. For us, it's Kharkiv, not Kharkiv. But it's not about politics, it's not about the language I speak, it's just for people so they would understand what city I am talking about. And I think, guys, it's time to call it a night. It's getting really dark, even though it's like 3 p.m. and it's a little bit snowy. So I hope I provided some additional information about this sensitive topic. I'm not really good at this Q&A format, but I did my best. So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, you can consider supporting this channel by buying me a coffee. And of course, I'll see you very soon from Kharkiv again. Bye guys.